Hey everybody, and welcome to my channel. For my first video series, I'm going to be replacing the SM465 transmission in my 1978 K10 with the NV4500. I've got a couple of kits here from Advanced Adapters that's going to allow me to basically plug and play, and according to their information, transfer case will be in the same spot. I will be mounting the NV4500 to the MP205. Obviously, I got the NV4500 transmission, a new casing, the adapter that's going to allow me to mount the NV4500 to my MP205, a new bell housing with the mechanical clutch so I don't have to convert the clutch to hydraulic, and then numerous other parts. Some of them include the adapter plate, the adapter housing, a coupler, the transfer case shifter linkage bracket, the cross member, sealed bearing, two-piece collar set, and some seals, and a bag of nuts and bolts. The bell housing kit includes a dust cover, the bell housing, modified bearing retainer, pilot bearing, clutch release arm, and the throw-out lever spring clip, the new pivot ball, and the throw-out arm rubber boot, and a bolt pack. The first thing I'm going to need to do is remove the old transmission and transfer case, but I'm not going to bore you with that because there's a lot of videos showing how to do that. The only major modification I've seen for this conversion is we're going to have to cut off a section of the output shaft and use the splines that the GM harmonic balancer usually rides on and couple that to the MP205 10 spline. So included is this adapter that goes from, I believe it's 31 splines to the 10 spline. You can see the new rear housing is a little bit shorter, and that's because we're going to have to cut off part of this output shaft. This, I'll probably try to sell it. So once the cover is off, usually, like I said, there's a harmonic balancer that rides in here somewhere. This is a new transmission built for this conversion, so I didn't have them include the harmonic balancer. So what they did is they had the nut that's usually on here holding the harmonic balancer on, and they put this sleeve on here to protect the splines. So there's a couple Allen head set screws in here. I've already removed them, and this just unscrews. So once that's off, the washer's off, these are the splines we'll be using for the mating point to the MP205, so we'll have to cut this off just in front of these threads, and that's where this coupler comes into play. It'll slide over there and mount. Okay, now that I've got everything protected the best I could, I'm going to go ahead and cut this off right in front of these splines here. And that, my friends, is how you void the warranty. So I got the spline cut off. I'm going to test the coupler. Oh, wrong side. And that slides right on there. So this will couple the NV4500 to the MP205. Next thing we got to do is put on this two-piece retaining collar right around here to keep this from sliding off. You can see there's a high spot in this two-piece collar, so it pretty much only goes on one way. 4 Allen head bolts. Use some red Loctite. The only thing that this kit really doesn't give you, or the instructions I should say, is torque specs. So let's make sure it's tight. Red Loctite will hold it. And it kind of just goes on. Sorry, the lighting. Just like that. It rides in that groove, that higher spot rides in this lower spot. So get that together. And like I said, use some red Loctite to hold the bolts from backing out. Okay, I got the two-piece collar on. It's not a tight fit, so if you have OCD, this is where it comes in. Obviously, it's a better fit if the gaps on each side are even. So what I did is I just kind of worked both sides a little at a time, using my mallet to knock them and make sure it stays seated. But I don't know, I probably got it torqued to about 50 or 60 foot-pounds. Once that red Loctite sets up, it's not going anywhere. The next thing I'm going to be doing is mounting the new shorter housing to the back of the NV4500. I'll be using Max Flex by Permatex gasket maker. First I'll clean this surface up, and I'll clean the mating surface of the new housing and get those put together. Very important not to forget to put in your alignment pins. There's 2 of them on the back of the NV4500. Okay, I've got the new housing mounted using the gasket maker by Permatex. Bolts are hand tight right now. I'll wait an hour and then I'll torque them to specs. Okay, it's been about an hour. I got all the bolts torqued. I did some investigating online and found the torque specs. Majority seemed to think it was 40 foot-pounds. So I torqued them to 40 and put a little bit of blue Loctite on them. I'll have to drive this seal in later. This is the seal that goes in the rear housing, and this is the adapter. So what I've done now is remove the retaining clip from the 10 spline shaft, removed the bearing, and installed the sealed bearing that came with the kit. Now I'll put this retaining clip back on, and then it's ready to mount. Now that I got the sealed bearing changed out, this is going to help prevent fluid transfer from the transfer case to the transmission and vice versa. I've put this adapter plate on from Advanced Adapters. This is going to allow me to mount the MP205 to the NV4500. Again, I've used the Permatex gasket maker, and I'm going to let it set for an hour, and then I'm going to torque these probably to 40 foot-pounds. While I'm waiting for the former gasket to seal on the transfer case, I'm now going to install the transfer case shifter bracket, and that goes right on top of the transmission cover right here. So I'll remove these 3 bolts, install this, and torque them back down. Okay, now we're going to get the transmission ready for install. First thing we're going to do is install this modified bearing retainer, and that just slides over the input shaft, and it's held on. There's a bolt here and a bolt on the bottom, but all this does really is just allows the throwout bearing something to ride on. So we'll go ahead and get that installed, and then we can put the bell housing on. Okay, I got that installed. Put some blue Loctite on the threads and didn't get too crazy with it, just enough to hold it. And so now the throwout bearing has something to ride on. Now we'll mount the bell housing. Next thing I'm going to do before I forget is put in the reverse light switch, and that goes right into here. So I'll screw that in there, and that'll be ready to go. Okay, got the bell housing on, got the throwout bearing on, got the clutch arm in, got the reverse light switch in. I even picked up the correct harness for this at Torque King, that's local here to me in Billings, Montana. So I'll get that wired up before I send her on the road. Last thing I got to do with the transmission before I can install it is put this seal in back here, and we'll do that now.